It's Saturday, February 8th, 2020. You know, I've got to admit, I'm a little confused about what's happening with the U.S. economy. After listening to the president, all of the media, the business analysts on CNBC, Fox Business, telling you that this is a record-breaking U.S. economy, the best ever, telling us that this is record low unemployment, 50-year lows, and telling us that 90% of Americans are happy with their personal lives, which I find difficult to believe since 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. But this is not an attack on the president. I support the president. You know, if this president fails, the country fails too. If he does bad, the country does bad. So it's not a personal attack on the president, but I have to question, why is he not admitting what is happening with the U.S. economy? I'm just going to call it the way I see it. I'm not judging him, I'm not attacking him, but you and I, watching this video, you people, you know that this economy is fake. You know that these markets are manipulated. You know that we are on the doorsteps of the biggest economic collapse the world has seen, and nobody is warning America. And maybe this president is just too fearful, if he says anything, that he will set the global economy into a collapse or a crash. And I get that. But, I mean, it's so hard to believe watching the media, these analysts, or the president talk about this economy, especially when I read the comments. And please comment down below. I want to know your opinion. Everybody watching this video today, comment down below. What do you think about the economy? Because when I read the comments, and I try to read as many as possible, when I read the comments, there are areas that are doing very well, and there are many, many areas that are doing horrible. And so the truth lies more with you guys than it does with the media or a politician. So please comment down below so everybody who is watching this show tonight can read those comments and get a barometer of what's happening in the real U.S. economy. I want to go over an article here today on the hedge. This is how Americans paid for the record holiday spending. And if we can blame anything on the economy doing anything, it's credit cards, it's debt. The Fed on Friday revealed consumer credit change. Analysts expected this to be $15 billion for December with credit card spending. It was a whopping $22 billion. That's what was spent with credit cards in December. This brought total consumer credit to a new monthly high, an all-time high of $4.2 trillion. We have $9.4 billion in non-revolving credit, such as auto loans, student loans, things like that. We have $12.63 billion in revolving credit, like your credit cards. So you can thank any record holiday shopping to credit card debt, not the healthy consumer, not the healthy booming economy. This is the biggest 1 month increase in credit card debt since 1998. You want to know what is propping everything up in this economy? It's debt, it's credit cards. The average consumer must have credit, must have credit cards. And most people in America don't have one or two. They have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these things. And just think, I mean, household debt is at all-time highs, yet the consumer is out record spending in December. And how do they do it? With money they don't have, using credit cards. It's unbelievable. And look, I'm going to tell you, I don't feel sorry for a lot of people, because most people are going to bring these problems onto themselves because they cannot control themselves. They're out there recklessly spending, just like the U.S. government is. Here's another one. Smaller restaurants forced into bankruptcy as foot traffic collapses. Why don't we ever hear about this? All I heard all week was the record-breaking, booming economy, which doesn't exist. The 225,000 jobs that we just got, I guarantee you, 70, 80% of those are going to be all low-wage jobs. Lyft, Uber, Starbucks, fast food restaurants, service sector, hospitality, all that. $10, $12, $14 an hour jobs. There's too many restaurants and too many of them have massive debt. And now with the economy slowing down, this is going to cause a big problem in the restaurant industry. Many of these restaurants are suffocating because of the debt that they took on. They got all this cheap, easy money, and now the economy's slowing down. The foot traffic is disappearing. They can't pay the debts back, and we're going to see more restaurants in big trouble. As money gets tighter and credit cards get maxed out, we will continue to see less foot traffic in retail, and we're going to see less foot traffic at the restaurants. Expect to see a massive correction in the restaurant industry. So as we continue to be sold this propaganda about this record economy, I'm reading an article today about the record-breaking debt in U.S. cities. And I find it very contradicting that we can be in such an economic boom, yet we have 63 cities in America right now that do not have enough money to pay their bills. We have a total municipal debt that stands at $323 billion. So how can this be if we are at a historical economic boom that we have 63 cities currently right now that cannot pay their debt? We have the majority of U.S. Pensions unfunded, and we have 80% of our population working paycheck to paycheck, and 50% of U.S. workers making less than $32,000 a year. Now, if we break down what the taxpayer owes, what they're on the hook for in order to pay this debt off, it's staggering. New York, each taxpayer in New York would have to pay $63,100 to make this debt whole. In Chicago, the taxpayer would have to pay $37,100 to make this debt whole. Philadelphia, $25,500. Portland, you'd have to pay $18,400. San Francisco, $17,000. And if you live in Cincinnati, you'd have to pay $15,600 to make this debt whole because of the massive debt that your politicians got you into. New York has $62.7 billion available to pay $249.4 billion worth of bills, which breaks down to a burden of $63,100 per taxpayer. It's amazing with the booming economy that the debts and the deficits get even bigger. Now, going back to this article, as we talk about cities such as Chicago, let's talk about the state of Illinois. Yes, the rich are fleeing Illinois, and the media is telling everybody that it's not the rich, it's the poor that are fleeing Illinois, and that's not quite true. We have an IRS breakdown of tax filers in Illinois who are leaving. Check this out. For the people who make under $25,000 that left Illinois, 9,900 of those people left Illinois that made under $25,000. For the people that made $25,000 to $50,000, 8,357 of them fled Illinois. $50,000 to $75,000, Illinois lost 6,029 people. For people making $75,000 to $100,000, Illinois lost 4,746. The people making $100,000 to $200,000 in Illinois, the state lost 9,126 of them. And for the people in Illinois that were making $200,000 plus, 4,836 of them left the state of Illinois. This is a total of 2019. 43,001 was the total of people who left the state of Illinois, and those are the tax brackets right there. Filers with incomes over $200,000 took with them 55% of the net income Illinois lost to other states. States like this are in massive trouble. They're going bankrupt. They are bankrupt. Ask yourself, what happens when these markets correct? What happens when the downturn gets here? When they lose control? When this collapse hits, what are states like New Jersey and Illinois going to do? So many. And cities like Chicago and New York who are just riddled with debt. Look, if these are the good times, what do you think the bad times are going to look like in these states and in these cities? they're going to be horrendous. These are going to be nightmares. So we not only have a very, very fragile economy, we not only have a Ponzi scheme stock market, but we have more problems. There's a professor from Imperial College in London who says that there are 50,000 new infections a day in China. And this is alarming. And I know that there's people out there saying this is no big deal. This is just like the flu. Don't overreact. But you know what? This isn't going away. And I think it's a little worse than the flu. He says here, infections are doubling every 5 days. Death rate unknown. We know that they lie about everything over there. It will be very hard to control this. This is what this professor says. We still don't know what the full effects are. And here's the thing. We don't know really much about it. We don't know what caused it, where it came from. Many people now saying this is man-made. But whatever the case may be, they are not getting it under control. And at some point, if this does not get under control quickly, we are going to see economic effects from this very, very shortly, probably within the next couple weeks. The longer that this goes on, the harder it is going to be to get control of it. Ask yourself, what is keeping everything alive right now in these markets? It's confidence, right? Even though it's a total Ponzi scheme, the investors, the banks, they all know that the Federal Reserve is the buyer of last resort, that if there's a problem, the Fed's going to come in and dump $100 billion into the markets this morning, right? Problem is now we have this infection running wild, and it seems to be getting more and more out of control. And what does that do to confidence? And this is something that the Fed cannot control. When people lose confidence, these markets are in big trouble. There's uncertainty out there now. There's fear. There's anxiety. And no matter how much money you pump at this, it may be something that you can't stop. We don't know yet, and nobody has a crystal ball. But we're probably going to know more in 2 or 3 weeks, because we know that the supply chains are breaking down. What happens when deliveries can't be made? What happens if the ports are closed and we're no longer taking shipments in from China? Who knows what can happen 2, 3, 4 weeks from now? We don't know, and that's uncertainty. And there is certainly more fear and more panic brewing out there, not good for the markets. The Fed can only inject money, but it cannot save you from an infection. So with all the uncertainty out there right now, and I think there's a lot of uncertainty here in America with the U.S. economy, because I think people like you, people like me, we don't believe what we're being told. When I read the comments down below, and I read what's happening in many towns in this country, it is far from what I'm being told on Fox Business News. I mean, you watch Fox Business News, you would believe that we are living in a utopia at this point, and we are far from a utopia. When I read those comments, it is a injection of reality, and it's one of the reasons why I buy gold, why I buy silver, why I put water and food away, why I have security, because of the comments down below. I don't listen to a television to tell me that I should prepare. I listen to people like you. I read those comments, and when I read those, it's like I need to be preparing more, because this is what's really happening in the United States of America. And you know what's really happening? In the world, central banks are stockpiling massive amounts of gold, precious metals. As much as they pretend to hate precious metals, they are the biggest buyers of precious metals. It's amazing. They want you to continue buying paper, but they're buying the hard, tangible assets like gold and silver. The elites secretly stock the precious metals whenever the economy goes awry, because they know it's the only thing they can protect themselves with. The banking establishment is often privy to impending disasters. Many times they create these disasters. Now, I'm not saying that they have anything to do with what's happening in China. I don't believe that at all. But I bet they know more than than we do. I bet the people at the very top, these banking elite, know a lot more than we do. And it's interesting, just look at the massive amounts of gold that they're stockpiling. Gold is their hedge of choice because it is tangible, naturally rare, and cannot be artificially created or cloned. Gold shields not only their assets from decline, but it also shields their position of power. The more they have and the less that you have gives them more power. And I believe that one of the best things you can do is empower yourself. Be your own asset, meaning getting the best physical and mental shape and spiritual shape that you possibly can, and financially get in the best shape that you can. You need to be holding precious metals, gold and silver. I'll be making another order probably next week myself. I don't think I really have a choice. I talked to a good friend of mine yesterday who acquired a lot of metal in the last week. And he just said, look, I've got cash sitting around. It's just sitting there. It's being devalued daily. I'm better off just buying hard assets like gold and silver. And so he went out and bought a lot over the past week. And before I forget, I want to also interject with this. Somebody brought it to my attention today that China basically supplies America with about 80 or 90% of our pharmaceuticals. And that really makes a great point too. We're so dependent on China, but we talk about uncertainty, anxiety, fear. Just think about if those pharmaceuticals do not get to America, what would happen to these markets overnight? If that happens, if there's a shortage of pharmaceuticals in America, this market is going to get rocked. You need to be protecting yourselves. It's not a bad idea to stockpile extra pharmaceuticals while you can get them. Look, buy the things you can get right now. You can buy brass. You can buy pharmaceuticals right now. You can buy gold. You can buy silver. Don't wait till the end. Don't wait till something happens. Look at those people in China. They had no preparations. They live under a communist regime that doesn't want them to be prepared. And many of these people fighting for lives, being quarantined into cities in lockdown. I'm sure many losing whatever wealth that they had is gone. You do not want to be a victim of this. So acquire this stuff while it's cheap, while it's available. But again, the more tangible assets you have, you're putting the odds in your favor to survive a collapse. So I'm going to wrap it up right here, but I want to leave you with this. We look at what's happening globally: infections, uprisings, war, global economic collapses. These are all warning signs for you and I to be preparing daily, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. You look at the people in China, completely unprepared, but the communist regime doesn't want its people to be prepared because it's much easier to manipulate people who are not prepared. It's much easier to condition people who are unprepared. When you look at the people in America, they're the same. Very easy to condition Americans. Very easy to manipulate Americans. And you look at the typical American, showing us the glass of wine on Facebook, showing us the steak dinner they're eating on Facebook, showing us their new tile backsplash in their kitchen on social media, showing us their Laker tickets on social media. I mean, these are the D-bags of America, and these are the masses. Ask yourself, what are these people going to do when these markets collapse? What would they do if these infections hit America? Do these people have preparations? They have food, water? Can they actually take care of themselves? Can they protect themselves? Do they have the security? Do they have the know-how? Do they have the guts to take care of themselves? They think that they're financially wealthy because they have a 401k or they have some paper in the stock market and they looked at some digits on a screen this morning and they have $500,000 or they have $1 million or they have $2 million. But it's on a screen, it's not in their hands. And what they don't understand is an infection or an economic collapse or some black swan event can erase all those digits off of a screen like that. And then what are you left with? You're left with yourself. Are you an asset? You yourself, are you an asset? Are you investing in yourself? Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to rely on yourself. Walking close to God and being your own asset. That's what will get you through the tough times, in my opinion. But to a lot of these people, they believe they're wealthy because they have this paper, because they have the stock market, and it's working right now. The Ponzi scheme is paying them right now. What happens when it doesn't? Imagine what they're going to lose. They're going to be sitting there holding paper, worthless paper. So the point I'm trying to make is this. The people on social media who are always trying to impress us with the $20 glass of wine and the steak dinners and the Laker tickets and all of this and that, these people are the most unprepared people for what is coming. These are the people who will be taken by surprise. These are the people who have relied on the system, who relied on the financial institutions, who have relied on the stock market. And when the cord gets pulled, they're done. They have no hard assets. You know what they have? You know what they've acquired? They've acquired a lot of debt. They've acquired another 30 years of debt when they bought that house. Those Laker tickets that they put on the credit card, it's another bill. The new the tile backsplash or the tile floors at the house that they just put in, it's another bill on the credit card. When the cord gets pulled on this economy, people like this are going to be annihilated. You are much better off to live in a smaller house, drive an older car, take that money and acquire real assets. You know, for me, I sacrifice a lot of things. I live in a smaller house, I drive an older car, but it allows me the freedom and ability to buy more gold, more silver. If you cut out those $7 lattes at Starbucks, you're gonna be able to buy more silver. If you cut things out and stop trying to impress people you don't know or don't like, stop impressing your mom and dad and your family members, stop impressing people and start buying assets. Stop acquiring debt and start buying assets like gold and silver. Start looking out for your future. I mean, do you really think acquiring more debt and more bills is a good thing to do going into what we know is coming? That's a big mistake. But see, people today, they don't want to make the sacrifices. They don't want to drive the older car. They don't want to live in a 2-bedroom house. They want to live in a 4-bedroom house because they need those 2 extra bedrooms to impress people. They gotta, go to Starbucks twice a day and spend $20 a day at Starbucks, $400 a month just for coffees, instead of taking $400 a month and acquiring real assets. People need to get their priorities straight. I truly do believe that time is of the essence. Time is running out. We are getting very, very close to some very large events that are going to happen here in America. This economy is more fragile than you think. This economy, no doubt, is on borrowed time. And now what is happening in China, we have no idea what this could set off. So maybe you need to cut out the lattes. Maybe you don't need to be driving a Mercedes or a Lexus today. Maybe you need to make some sacrifices, and maybe you'll sleep a little bit better at night knowing that when bad things come, you're going to be prepared for them. Remember, food, water, security, gold, silver. Make sure you are preparing. God bless America.